Welcome to Culture Before Content. Culture Before Content, from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. And now, here's your host, David Duarte.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm David Duarte, your host for Culture Before Content. Whether you're watching live, listening, or enjoying a replay, I am happy you are here. At Music for All and within the Culture Before Content community, our mission is to create, provide, and expand positively life-changing experiences through music. And none of this happens without support, and we are incredibly grateful to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor, for helping us bring this mission to life. And if you're watching us live, now's the perfect time to join the conversation. Feel free to get involved, leave a comment, say hello, ask a question, do anything. It's great. Being a part of the conversation is what makes Culture Before Content special. And it's always great to hear from you out there. Now, if you missed the live show and want to catch up later, you can listen to our audio only versions every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major platforms. If you want to watch these full video replays, including this episode, they're available anytime at Music for All's YouTube and Facebook pages under the video section. For everything Culture Before Content, just visit musicforall.org/podcast. All right. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to remind you about something we're all excited about this summer, the Sweetwater Director Academy during the Bands of America Summer Camp presented by Yamaha. That was a mouthful. I'm just saying, I got it out. I'll be joining the faculty at the Sweetwater Director Academy, and I'm excited to meet many of you. It's shaping up to be a fantastic music learning and connection week. And if you haven't already, check it out at camp.musicforall.org. Also, watch our regular podcast platforms. We'll bring you some special Culture Before Content interviews straight from camp. It's going to be a blast. Hey, I might even be in the same room with the people. That'll be interesting and fun. All right. Well, let's talk about last week. Last week, we had the magnificent Craig Gustafson. He is a band and orchestra director from Vancouver, Washington. Craig's classroom culture is built on respect, collaboration, and deep listening, a place where students feel valued and supported. Though trained as a band director, Craig embraced the challenge of leading orchestra, learning alongside his students with determination and humility. He uses the Suzuki method for beginners, focusing on developing strong technique and musicianship early. His student-centered approach encourages choice, creativity, and learning through success and failure. Craig's belief in cultivating well-rounded citizens shines through everything he does, making his classroom a model for how music education can transform lives. And I can attest, after hearing his groups and knowing him personally, he is just a fantastic human being and someone we should all learn from. All right. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. Oh my gosh, it is episode 60. Can you believe we have done 60 episodes? It's only been a year and a half. Super fun. But today, I'm honored to introduce Pat Vandehey, a pillar of excellence in music education. Over a distinguished career, he led Aloha and Westview High Schools here in Oregon to the multiple Oregon State Band Championships, setting a standard for musical achievement. Later, he shaped future music educators at George Fox University and Portland State University. A past president of the Oregon Band Directors Association and recipient of national honors, Pat exemplifies leadership, musicianship, and mentorship. A gentleman, a scholar, and someone who has worked with my bands here in Washington. Pat inspires me in my career. His words have helped inspire my students, which continues to motivate them today. Well, it is with great pleasure and deep respect that please join me in welcoming Mr. Pat Vandehey.
And there I am.
And here you are. Welcome, Pat. It is so good to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Well, I'm just going to get started because like I said, this whole conversation is based on, we always forget, you and I have met each other. We actually don't live that far apart. We're 2 states apart, but, just a few miles. But there's a whole United States of America out there. And, we band directors, we get known in our little areas. And I think one of the neat, fascinating things about this show is I'm meeting people from all over the country, and it's a chance for people that I know to meet the rest of the country. So this is kind of that reverse where, if you're a listener or viewer out there, this is somebody who is very well respected in the community up here in Oregon and Washington. Anytime I hear Pat's name being called, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, awesome. I've got a chance, like I said, he got a chance to work with my band a few years ago at our concert band festival. And like I said, well, in your introduction, those words were very inspiring for my kids. They still talk about that time you got a chance to meet with them. And if you've ever seen Pat work or just listened to Pat, he is so great, and the culture he builds, the bands he produces, and like I said, you are a great high school band director, a great college director, and I just want people to get a chance to know who you are. So maybe instead of me telling you who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit? And let's hear it from Pat and not from David.
What do you want to know?
Well, I would, first off, let's talk about your journey. So, like I said, I started, Aloha to West. Let's talk about Aloha to Westview, maybe a little about the band that you had there, and then your transition to George Fox University, and then where we together, which was Portland State.
If I could, David,
sure.
Can I go back many years before that?
You can go all the way back to childhood.
Because my journey was not normal in the aspect of graduating from high school, going into a 4 or 5 year college, jumping out and starting teaching at 22. That isn't the way I did it. I graduated from high school in 71, a long time ago, and matriculated at one of the local universities. I won't say because I didn't have that great of an experience. Dropped out after 2 terms, joined a rock and roll band, and went on the road playing clubs for 2 years.
What?
And it was the era of Tower of Power, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Chicago, horn bands. And I'm a trombonist. And that, for a 19-year-old, was quite an experience. I won't go into all the aspects of that, but it was life-changing. After 2 years, I dropped out, went to the local community college, got my second year finished, then transferred to University of Washington, where I completed my undergrad. But by the time I graduated, it was 9 years after I had graduated from high school. So I was 27 when I started my first gig. And it was, boy, I was ready to start. I got to tell a story. I was so done with school that I was a senior at Washington. I was taking brass techniques, music ed, and the instructor was teaching how to play trumpet. And he was saying, when you play trumpet, you want the kids to play high. You have them pull their lips back and shove, push back. Obviously, absolutely the wrong thing to do. But I wanted out so bad, I wrote, okay, smile and shove. And that's what I wrote. That's what I wrote in the test, and I passed it, got an A. Because I just wanted to get out. I was on the 9-year plan. When I applied at Portland State, the students interviewed me, and it's an urban school. It's a transit school, and I told that same story. I says, you're on what do you mean the 9-year plan? I go, it took me 9 years to get my undergrad, and they all applauded because they're all on the same track. So it was great. Anyway, I got my first job at Aloha High School. You got to stop me because I can just start telling stories.
Oh, I know. I love hearing Pat stories. This is why you're here.
I followed, well, 2 things I'm going to say. I'm going to say that there are values, and this is somebody that taught music education at the university level for 19 years. You learn way more once you get out into the trenches than you'll ever learn in a classroom. And I told students that all the time. I go, when I started, I knew nothing. Yeah, I knew how to play the instruments a little bit, and I knew how to conduct 4. But did I know how to deal with students of all kinds of situations, all kinds of backgrounds? Absolutely not. And that's the most important thing we do. But I got to Aloha, and I can remember the rule. They tell you don't change a thing the first year you start teaching in a school. Keep it the same, change it the second year. I tried that. I got to our first district festival, 3 bands. The other 2 directors had made publicly clear that they thought that hiring a rookie teacher at a Aloha High School, which is a big 6A school, was a stupid thing to do. And this was going to be my first public performance with them. We were going to do Festivo by Nellie Bell, piece I had no business doing, and should never have picked that piece. But you know how many percussionists are in that piece and scored for. 2 of them showed up. I had to ask the previous band director to come up and play bass drum for me in the concert. All I was doing was proving my 2 colleagues at the other 2 schools that they were right. Anyway, I was so furious by this. We were in the warm-up room when we were the first band on, that I stood in front of the group and I drew a line in the sand, so to speak, figuratively, and said, there's the line. You're going to do it my way from here on out. This will never happen again. Not in my program. And if you don't like it, I can show you how to get to the counselor's office. I lost several kids after that. But as they were walking out the door to go on stage, all of them had their heads bowed. They knew I was pissed off. I had one kid in that band of about 80. There was only one band in the school at that time. And one kid who studied privately, did solo and ensemble, did all the stuff. She walked by me. She looked up at me and went, thank you, and kept going. And I knew at that point, that was a turning point for me. I knew at that point, okay. There are some things that you just have to know are, set in concrete. You're not going to move a bit. And you're in control. The kids are not. And that was my first year of teaching, and things went up from there. So I was at Aloha for 9 years. The program grew. We excelled in many areas, marching band, jazz band, especially in the wind ensemble arena, won the state band contest. But after 14 years, I'm a builder. I really had taken the program, I felt, as far as I could take it. And I felt like I'm maintaining now. I need a new challenge. And we had a new school opened up. That was Westview, across town. So I took the job. They offered me the job. I took the job and started over. And it was, and I have to add something here. And by the way, you said you're going to keep me from meandering.
I will, but I'm listening to the story, Pat. I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Okay, I'm a competitive guy.
What?
And I'm a driver. And when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of control over myself and my driving. I pushed hard, and I pushed the competitive thing really, really hard, way too hard. And it worked. It motivated kids. I'm a good motivator. It motivated kids. The program grew leaps and bounds. It was awesome. We won the trophies. But I realized about 3/4 of the way through my tenure at Aloha that I'm doing this all for the wrong reasons. I'm doing this for the trophy, which gets dust on it the next week, and not for the growth of the kids and not for the music. Trying to turn that beast around midstream is very difficult. But going to a new school, I was able to, I really, after 14 years of teaching, I think I had my philosophical reasons for teaching, for why we do this, pretty well worked out in my head. And I started from scratch using that. We didn't talk competition. We didn't talk trophies. We didn't do any of that. And the band was way more successful. I did talk to the kids about the fact what we're going into the state band contest, for instance, but we don't care what happens. We care how we play, all that kind of stuff. I used to use the analogy. We want the judge up there with the pencil to set the pencil down and listen, because they have nothing else to say other than wow. We want, if you've got that, I also use the thing, that sizzle that goes up and down your spine, that tingle.
Mm-hmm.
When something's really beautiful, we want it to go up over your spine, over your head, and out your eyebrows. That's when you really know you've been playing well. And we had all sorts of little sayings like that. So you are reaching the audience through beauty and through excitement, as opposed to going into it to get hardware. So that all worked well.
I'm curious.
Go ahead.
I am going to stop. I'm asking a follow-up question now, because it's kind of that thing out there. You talk about being competitive. I think, most band directors are competitive. I mean, I think all of us are. It's those that are successful at it that kind of make a difference. And so, like, sometimes I look at competition as something to learn backwards. Like, how did you get to be successful, and how can we create? And this is where the culture before content comes in, because it has to be some of that culture. But was there a moment, that is there any specific moment, or was it just over time where you felt that need to change come from? Because I always say this: competition can be, it can be a motivator, it can be the opposite. And so that's when you say that. For our audience out there, Oregon has state band championships. You can do marching band with the circuit out here. You can do concert band and jazz band. It's one of the, I don't know many states that have, like, first, second place in every division. And I think that's something that's unique out here. Something that I discovered out here, because it's not like that here in Washington. And as we said, we're only a few miles apart, but I'm in a completely different system,
different world.
Here. Yep.
The not only do we have first, second, third, but they rank the bands 1st through 20. If you're number 20 at the state band contest, you will get that on a piece of paper. Nobody else will, but you will. It's out there. And that's because it's being run through the Oregon State Activities Association. Right. And that's their rules. We can't change that.
But I think I'm following up, and my question though is, where did that competitive drive leave, where it became, we don't compete to win, we are competing to be the best band that we can be? And and I love that when you said when you moved to Westview that you got a chance to start over and build it, because I think that's some of those things out there. I know many competitive band directors out there, and I don't try to change people, because A, it doesn't work, and B, it's not my place. But I used to be very, very competitive. I used to, that's what I'm saying. I had those moments where finally one day I woke up and said, it's not about winning or beating something or being better, because it depends on the situation or the school you're in. You might be in a rural city with maybe 15 kids in band, or you could be in a program with 300 kids in your band, and success looks different wherever you are and wherever you go. Well, so was there a moment, or was it just something that evolved?
It's listening to the kids talk. That's what did it to me. Listening to the kids talk about other programs and they'd tear them apart. They'd listen to them and they'd tear them apart and say, we're better at this, we're better at that. And I realized this is not why I want to do this. Also, it eats you up. It can eat you up. It did me anyway. I'm too competitive. And so that stuff just, I don't know if I would have lasted if I kept up that. And then I started reading books, talking to people, and realizing, there's a way to do this, to teach art. And you're right, competitiveness, it's probably the greatest motivator. I mean, it especially with kids, they'll go nuts over competition, but you got to just I think it's just teaching them how to handle it. When it doesn't go well, how you handle it, that kind of thing. But just hearing them and the way that they were digesting the competitions and the outcomes of the competitions. And if they didn't do well, how angry they'd get. And I said, oh, this is not right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my brain is reeling, because I was thinking about this, because winning, I almost feel like we, as a society, this is more maybe a societal thing, is that if you don't win, then nothing else matters. And that's a hard, where I think is, if you're trying your best, this is what I try to teach. I have this phrase come out: as long as we don't finish 11th in a 10 band race, we're doing fine. As long as we're doing that, we're the best that we can. I've had bands that have been as far as up you can go. And I've had bands that are, I'm just happy. Again, you said it, I'm happy they all showed up. And so that's, sometimes I think we just, as band directors, we have to figure out what it means to us. And you're right. And to the kids. I was thinking of something you just said. I had a former student we were talking about, the pep band doing something, and they're like, hey, why don't we invite some of the other schools to do something with us? And I thought that was just the sweetest thing coming out of my students, where they're wanting to share and learn. Cause I think that's the current culture
Yes.
that's going on as we're again, still coming out of COVID, is they're starting to listen and reach out, and they're wanting to meet people and do all the right. They're finally wanting to be social, which I think that was one of the things I noticed disappeared from my kids, is nobody was very social when we first started out after COVID. But I digress. I really want to get back to your story. So, because I think when
you digress, but it's a really good topic. And I think that the change also is when you change and go away from that motivator of competition, you still have to teach excellence. And excellence, not what the judge says is excellence, but just excellence in music making is the primary goal. How that is achieved, multiple ways, but you can't let those standards go down. And you've got to get those kids all to be thinking in those kind of standards, and not to win a contest, but to make great music. And that's the trick. It's hard.
It is hard. I've got me thinking, I'm laughing because like I caught myself this year where I think as a band director, one of my biggest faults is I do too much of the work. I can get my students to play what I want from them, but at some point I realize my bands are better when the kids are doing the work than the students.
Absolutely.
And so, I can fool I have a friend out there. We used to talk about this all the time. I mean, she was such a good band director. Her bands would get superior with distinction at every festival. And then finally one day I said, that's you. You're making the band so good, but I want to hear more of the band making the responsibility come out and less of you. And it was like a cathartic moment and a really deep conversation for us. And so like my point was like this year when I kind of realized that I was doing too much work, we're trying to do all this music, and it really wasn't that it wasn't a failure. It's just that I felt I took on too much responsibility and wasn't giving enough to the students. That's my aha moment for the year. So like I started thinking, what's it take to get kids to practice without them complaining about practice? What is it? I'm not interested in them practicing for an hour. I'm interested in knowing that they learned their scales or their thirds or their Clarks, something like that. So like I'm just thinking tomorrow, my accidental, like for this year, I decided we're doing the Wibbick. Funny, the pictures of Wibbick popped up. We've got Wibbick set A and B for next year because the auditions take place at the beginning of the year. So I passed them out to the kids, and then I said, you know what, this is chair placement for next year. And I said, it doesn't matter whether you're a senior going out. This is your final. This is I'm going to score it like a final. And lo and behold, Pat, kids are staying in the band room at lunch practicing. Kids are coming after school practicing. I'm having to say things I hate to say, which is, hey, I need you guys to go. I got an appointment. I'm showing up before school and kids are taking their instruments out. And this is in my notes, is that failure of my own, doing too much for my band is turning into a win for trying to right the ship. And so, like I said, for me, the competition, and which is my point, the competition is now for those kids because they're now worried about chair placement. So if you're listening, kids, it's tomorrow, 6th period. We'll start with seniors because they graduate this Saturday. But my point is that reminded me that my expectations were there for the kids, but I wasn't checking whether the expectations were being met by the kids.
Yeah.
And so that's why I said, using competition, chair placement this year, that was like my aha moment, because now the kids are practicing. Here it is. What is this, June 8th? And I've got kids practicing. And, and here's the other thing that I noticed. I could go to the lockers and see the lockers were empty. And that's what I noticed one day, was the lockers were full. And I'm like, what am I not doing? You tell the kids to practice, but what does that do? You tell the kids to, you need to get this section learned and all this. But again, I could use my own talent to overcome some of those deficits. And now I've reversed it. I've given them auditions or these dates, and lo and behold, practice. But enough of my story. Back to Pat. But see, that's how these conversations go. It becomes things. So, let's go back to Westview. Bands are playing for themselves. I mean, your Westview bands are notorious for how good they were.
They were very good. I mean, I had a great 9-year run there. Both my kids were in my band. Both they were good players. I'll tell you about that Westview band. I had a woman that worked with me, more as a teacher's aide type thing. Hey, this is another story.
I like stories.
When Westview opened, they had me teach at the local middle school to fill out my schedule because we didn't have seniors in the band. And I had these twins that were in the band, male, female twins. One trumpet and one saxophone at that time became a French hornist. And her mom came up to me afterwards and said, I have a master's in trumpet performance from USC, studied with Anthony Palog. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'd love to help in any way I can. And I said, okay. So we became good friends. And she eventually, while her kids went through the school, was there every day helping. I let her conduct some. But one of the things she did when these kids were 7th graders, her daughter was starting to learn French horn, and she's now one of the top call French hornists in LA, by the way. She was very, very good. State champion 3 years in a row. Anyway, her other son played trumpet. My daughter played trombone. So she started a brass quintet. And that brass quintet, especially with those three, the tuba changed once and the second trumpet changed once. That brass quintet stayed intact from 7th grade all the way through senior in high school. She also started a woodwind quintet that did the same. And if you can get chamber music going in your schools, and we had quite a few, it changed everything. It changed everything, especially that brass quintet. I didn't have to talk about where to breathe. They were all section leaders. They all knew where to breathe. They breathed together. They knew how to play in tune. They knew how to adjust chords. Because they played together all the time. It made all the difference in the world in the large ensemble. Anyway, Westview, I told you I tried to get away from the competitive thing, at least in my own heart, but we still competed a lot. And we did it in all aspects of the program. I did not have a big staff. I mean, I had the woman helping me, but I didn't have a bona fide 2 full-time people and everything else. I was burning out, and I was on year 23, and marching band in particular. We did the whole show marching thing. And the Rose Parade was yesterday. We were big time in the Rose Parade and all that stuff all the way to the end of the year. It was taking its toll. I was tired. And I'll go back 15 years earlier. I had the director at Portland State at the time was Bill Tuttle, and he came to me and said, Vandehey, and he never got it right. He says, you got to get a doctorate. You need to do higher ed. You got to get a doctorate. I said, Bill, I've got 2 young kids at home. I can't do that. I'm not going to do that to my family. So I didn't. But at this stage of the game, I'm talking back at Westview again, thinking, boy, I'd sure like to do higher ed. I'd like to have a change of scene again. So George Fox called. And for your listeners, George Fox is a private Christian college of about 3,000 students. Great facility, at least the auditorium is. He said, I want you, the department head said, I want you to apply. And I go, I don't have a doctorate. It doesn't matter. You don't need it. Will you apply? And I go, absolutely will. You're going to take big pay cut if you get the gig. And indeed, I got the gig. And indeed, I took a $14,000 a year pay cut. And this is 25 years ago. So that you do the math. That was a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
I never looked back. I went from the top program in the state, big program, or at least one of the top programs in the state in the Northwest. Big program, a lot of kids, everything's humming along. It's a machine. And I went to George Fox, this little sleepy college with 27 kids in the program. And I was never happier. It was just the best thing. And it was because I'm a builder, like I told you. And it was all those things. And it also teaching the music ed, et cetera. forced me to put all those ideas and what I'd been doing and how I made it work, putting that all together and trying to make a sense of it and teaching a philosophy of music education. And all these things we're talking about with competition, band directors in particular can go to so many festivals. You can be doing stupid things like taking your band to Disneyland after school's out.
It's where it fits, Pat. It's where it fits.
When you should be relaxing, but that's okay. I was able to get that all put together, and we went from 3 music majors when I started to, at our height, 67.
Wow.
So we really moved it, and then they cut all the scholarships, and that changed. But still, it was a terrific experience.
Do you get a lot of reward out of the building aspect? Because I consider myself a builder as well. I actually, when I get to a program and it gets to a certain spot, it's not that I get bored. It's that I just feel this need to be needed. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's something very valuable about that building philosophy. I think I'm in it right now. It's like, okay, I'm thinking about, I classify my musicians by, do they sound collegiate? Do they sound high school? Do they sound middle school? And like the amount of kids that are sounding more collegiate over my 4 years is finally getting to a point where I'm collecting a bunch of them, as opposed to when I got there was very few of them. I was, so
the building thing, I'd say the hardest part is the beginning. You've got to be able to live with yourself and the fact that they don't sound real good, that it's not, and there's all these barriers that are keeping it, but that's also part of the excitement that gets the brain working, and you've got to figure it out. And then watching the kids get turned on and bringing their friends into the program, and things start, then it's really exciting.
See, that to me. Oh, we have a comment. I love the workshop you ran at the U of O after you took the George Fox position, and love seeing you enjoy my eldest high school orchestra festival last year. Michael Wilson, SPS 19. So this just speaks to our listeners out there. It just speaks, like I said, I love getting to know people. I wish we could have 3 parts of the show. We have the show where we get to meet you and we get a chance to see the work that you're doing, and then maybe have a chance to experience some of those things. I was just thinking, in this building, do you have and you said it, the kids started bringing others. That's the culture that I'm speaking about. That doesn't happen by accident anywhere, because that takes, and to me, maybe it's talking about building the relationships that you build. First, it starts with the band director and the band, but then where does it go, and where does it go in a Pat band?
Man, when you start getting those kids in the program, I'm gonna move.
Go.
I went to 2 fabulous middle school concerts this last week. One was my daughter's, over in Evergreen. Terrific program. She and Katie run just a fabulous program, but lots of kids. Lots of these bands were full. Lots of kids playing really well, and and young kids. I've seen the excitement and the parents and the all of that. You talk about culture. What a band ensemble can bring to kids and teach kids so much. When you see those kids coming into the program and see what it does to them, and the lights go on. Oh, I got to say, the other program was Sherwood Middle School. Cast of Thousands, wonderful program. Anyway, when you see the lights turning on, and they get involved, and the friendships and all the intangibles that come with ensemble music, and in a band, orchestra, choir program, at the school level. I used to have kids tell me, if it wasn't for band, I wouldn't even be in school. I mean, that's high school.
I think we need to remember that a lot more than many of us do.
It changes lives. It saves lives. It transforms students in all aspects of their lives. What I'm saying is, everybody knows this, but I would say here's a key to growing that I would throw out. You have to teach to the gifted kid. You have to teach the gifted kid. You can be very empathetic and want to reach out to these kids that are struggling in life and have problems. They're not the best players, da 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 da. But if they become your leaders, that's the way your band's going to sound. You can't lose those gifted kids. The gifted, here's what I teach my music ed classes. The band program is in a 3-tiered strata. Top tier are the kids that can play, the kids that are into it, the gifted kid. And it's a thin tier. We all have 5 or 6 of those wonderful players. Boy, I wish I had more. But those are, and those gifted kids are also your leaders. Then you've got that huge strata in the middle, the kid that just loves to come to band, and they will follow those gifted kids through a brick wall. Okay. And then you got the bottom feeders, also a thin strata. But they can be leaders, you know this. And if you lose the gifted kid, it flips. And the bottom feeders become the leaders, and that whole thing goes down.
Oh my gosh. I just had that conversation with friends. This is my champion thing that I use. It's called teach to the top, but I actually have something that I have on my wall, which is teach to the top, push the middle, and accommodate the rest. That is like that is what lives on my wall.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, we all have those kids that leave our program that you think, I can't replace them. They go through the door and you go, oh my gosh, the next year in another form, that kid comes back in. But you've got the kid, the lame-o, who has caused you numerous headaches. They go out the door and you can't slam the door fast enough. Guess who comes in the door next year? They come in too. I mean, it is what the job's all about. But you are responsible for all of them. But those gifted kids will be the example that'll make the program fly.
Let me ask you a question about that, because this is how I am. Like, I see the band, I'm constantly always replacing the kid that's leaving, even when they're freshmen. I'm like, how am I going to replace that kid? So my mind is constantly revolved around, okay, I'm going to lose these trumpet players here. Who's going to take their place? And what I've learned after 35 years of my career, someone they will fill that hole. You will fill it. It may not be better, but it will be definitely like kind of the tradition of being good kind of replaces itself with those. So like, I used to worry like, oh my God, I only have like, there's only 7 saxes in this band, in this jazz band, and only 2 of them are going to be here in 2 years. How am I ever going to replace it? Well, then that 2 years passes. The next thing I know, I've got 20 saxes. But are you one of those people that thinks ahead like that? Cause I'm always constantly looking for
yeah, I am. But your state champion trumpet section may be the apex of what you'll have, and the next year is not as good, but you might have a state champion clarinet section. I think the key to keeping that band or ensemble at a really high level is picking the music that fits your ensemble.
Yeah, but don't you think even without those state champion things, here's the thing that I'll notice, and I'll bet this is you to a nutshell. The scores don't change that much. No, matter of fact, sometimes even with the less, I lost my, I once lost 4 all-state trumpet players from one band to the next, but the scores went up the following year. And it wasn't that the trumpet section was better. The system of, again, teach to the top, push the middle, and that's what I had to remember myself. And then, here's the thing that I think about my culture of warm-ups is, if I want brass players with endurance, then I got to have that endurance warm-up system has to be brought, and the older kids have to be brought to the youngers. And I'll use one of my own students, and without naming, but I've got a young trombone player. I got a couple of young trombone players. A year ago, I was going to panic about, because, oh my gosh, would you lose? I lost one of my great trombone players who parents are probably listening, became a drummer. And so my brain's like, how am I going to replace a trombone player? Because, you only get so many. But then this, a freshman will come in, and maybe they start the year at a very level, but holy cow, they do that push the top philosophy. Sure. Next thing I know, I'm going, this kid is going to be stellar. And you're able to like kind of, kind of point your resources towards that. Well, if that kid gets this, then I need to give him these resources to get him. Like you said, all these kids here at the top, you want to point that kid that way. They're like balloons. You just want them to float to the top, and then you gotta go fill up another balloon.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I did want to make a correction on our comment before, Patrick. If you're back there listening, he did a little further comment. He said, yeah, he meant to say that at the U of O festival that adjudicating with Bob Ponto. So I wanted to make sure he got the credit for. Do you have the former comment too? The full comment. There we go. That's on the workshop you ran at U of O with George Fox, and
Right.
judging with Bob Ponto. And a lot of people don't know who Bob, if you're not from up here, if you don't know who Bob Ponto is, again, another genius out here. There's like I said, what I've learned being still the newbie up here after 4 years, there's so many amazing music educators up here, and I can't meet them fast enough.
And Bob is one of the best.
Oh yes, by far. He's constantly in the area. And here's the other thing too, your pictures that have been floating. I do like talking about this because I do believe in this. Like you were conducting the WIBIC, the
Collegiate Honor Band.
And I always talk about WIBIC, and I always like just bring it out there because WIBIC is one of those fantastic things that I think more band directors should think about being a part of, because for me as the high school guy, it's about the honor bands that my students can go do. And it's 4 days of kids being in honor bands that are leveled. And I was wondering, what's your experience with WIBIC been like, and here you are presenting at it, talking to the students and maybe what that, maybe talk about what that collegiate band's like, because that thing has been growing here in the last couple of years as well.
Yeah, it has. No, WIBIC's great. WIBIC is, I think it's more of an extension of what goes on at the schools than say an all state or an all Northwest. It's bigger. There's more kids. It's a little easier. It's not so cutthroat to get in. Though it's still high quality. The bar's high, and they just do so many nice things for the kids in the way of like what you see. Well, these are collegiate, but they have all sorts of sessions and times to talk to professionals and Dr. Tim and things like that come in, and it's great. It's terrific.
Yeah. It's one of those things I think everyone should look up. For me as a Arizona native, I didn't know what Midwest was. And when I was young, when I was first coming out of high school, and that kind of, you go to Midwest once and you're into the whole system, Bands of America, same thing. There's just all these systems that, if you'll be a part of it, it can help, motivate you as a band director to go see these things, find out things. But there's another question that I see that's coming up. I would, Patrick, if you're out there listening, if you bring up, what are your thoughts for young teachers that dream of working at a specific level or a specific type of ensemble, and the reality they may end up pivoting to a different type of music ed job? Oh, I've got ones on that one as well, but I want to hear what you have to say on that, Pat.
You dream of working at a specific level or a specific type of ensemble.
I think my take on this, and maybe our listener, is like, I want to be a high school band director, but the only job I can find is a general music job.
Well, I mean, then you take it. The first thing is you got to get in and work. And I will tell you, success breeds success. I wanted to teach higher ed, and I couldn't do it. There wasn't any opportunities. But body of work opened doors. Okay. I have a friend that was a high school band director, and he needed to move into an area to live because of his wife, and the only thing open was a general music job. He took it and became teacher of the year, and became just a fabulous general music teacher, one of our best in the state. So I mean, it's music.
My thought on this is, this goes back to my administration days when we had the 2007 crash, and I took my admin role when I got it. I did it right when the crash happened. So I literally watched all the funding for everything that I was doing just disappear. And one of the fundings was jobs. And the way we saved them is we made every single, elementary school band director also the general music teacher. So I found a way to figure it out. And so my advice to everyone out there is, we're all music teachers. It doesn't matter. We can pretend like, I was thrown into an orchestra job, and guess what? You go, you learn, and to me, it's about a puzzle. And so you go and solve that puzzle, and maybe you're not good at the puzzle on day one. But I say to anybody out there who's, if you want to be, let's say maybe you wanted to be a middle school teacher and you end up finding a high school job, the trick is do a lot of research. And then, I always say this, find a mentor. because somebody out there does it better than you in everything.
I think those doors will open though. If I had, I applied at a couple general music jobs when I first got out of college, just because I had to work. I got the high school job first, but I was going to work. But whatever job I got, I was going to put 100% into it. And that's, everything I had, I was going to put into that job and make it work, whether I was prepared for it or not. Well, I had to do the orchestra thing too. I remember when Prop 5 went through, that was the proposition tax cuts in Oregon. And boy, they cut teachers everywhere. And all of a sudden, I was the orchestra director. And I had to learn and the choir director. I taught choir, orchestra, and band at Aloha High School. And, I had to figure it out. And I spent the summer talking like mentors. Talking to the friends that I had that were really good at that, got the literature set up and did, and I had a blast. It was a great year. So
I always say this, I took over the choir program at Washougal this year, and it's just, to me, it's just a pure treat. But the only thing the reason I say that is because I've done it. I started doing that my very first year. Can you teach choir? Sure, I can teach choir. I have no idea how to teach choir at the time, but that experience, that's how I started off. I actually was going to be a general music teacher. I found a job in Tucson and I took it. It was at a private school, and I almost kept that route. I always wanted to be a high school band director, but I started teaching general music and I fell in love with it. I mean, it was this close to continuing on with
sure.
it. But what I've learned, and this is why I always say to people, you will serve, if you're good at something, you're going to try. And if your motivation is to drive, and then guess what? You've got a skill set that helps. I will tell you right now, as teaching choir, I get reminded every day what my band needs through my choir. And at the reverse, I get reminded what my choir needs through my band. But they are two total different cultures and two totally different mediums. But it's still those same things you get constant. But boy, I like to build. This is why I say build. I like building with the kids. I learn as they can sight sing better, as they can do better, as they can harmonize better, as their diction gets better, all that stuff.
I would say, and this is shifting a little bit back to where we were, whatever job you've got, in order to excel, you have to get out of your room, ask questions. You need mentorship. I don't know. I've actually clinic bands where I've gone in and I'm working with a person's band and the guys in the office on a cell phone, not listening. That kind of thing is absurd to me. Going to contest, boy, my first 3 years teaching band, I got clobbered. And when I'd get clobbered, I'd call up the judge that clobbered me and say, come in, work with my band, because I don't know how to do what you're talking about, because my music ed classes weren't very good. I didn't learn anything there. I want to see you work. And watching a master come in, work with your ensemble and do it, and then you take notes and you figure it out. It's a process. It'll happen.
I'm old school enough to say just travel with the yellow pad. I guess you can take your iPad and write on it, keep it electronically. Sure. But I'm an experiential learner, so like I still love my yellow pads. And now I'm all fancy and I'll take a picture of what I wrote and take it with me. But I still believe, and that's why I wish we had like 5 days a year as a teacher, as a high school teacher, or actually any level teacher, that we could go out and observe, because I've learned more through observation than I have.
Sure.
Because it's kind of that whole thing. What's weird? It's like someone can say the word thank you and another person can say thank you, but it has two total different meanings. And so that's true about watching somebody else rehearse, or that you might, oh my God, I would never thought of saying it that way. I've picked up so many little things that I, and even here's some of the things that I used to do. I learned from watching other classrooms. Like I watched an English classroom and I got a ton of things about
Sure.
the culture that, because English, here's my way. English is comparable to music. It's not the book. It's not the music. It's what you're trying to do to teach the book, just like it is to teach the music. And it kind of put me in that thing of, why am I doing this piece of music? And I can spend more of that time with the kids, I think sometimes we band directors can get too involved in teaching just teaching the music content, but not teaching any of the why of the music. And it's so amazing if you can actually get deep into the music, that sometimes that might be the driver that would have made it more successful. But sometimes we just get caught in our little hole, so to speak.
You get caught in your little hole in your space. It's very easy for a young director to start feeling sorry for themselves and blaming. Oh, it's the administration, or these kids don't get it, or whatever. An example of how it should be done: we have a Banks High School, and I hope Allison listens to this because she's terrific. She took over. Allison, I can't say her last name, Hoagland or something like that. I'm sorry, Allison, I can't remember your last name. She married, new name. Anyway, Allison took over Banks High School, and it was bottom of the heap. And I judged their league festival in the spring. She had 7 kids on stage. It's 3 years ago. And they did not sound good. And we did not give her good scores. We may not even have given her a score. I can't remember. But what's the first thing she did? She called me up and said, "Can you come in and work with the band and show me, help me?" And then she asked me questions. And she did that with other guys too. She'd bring them in, and but she'd pay attention. The next year, significant growth. The third year, this year, 4th in state, I believe, 25 kids this is a small school, 25 kids in the band, and they play well. And she also paid attention to the literature they're playing. It got better, got more, she became more in tune with and she was asking questions. What should I do? How should I do this? And she paid attention. She did it. And she also had that it factor of bringing the kids in and making them feel important, and making them feel special. And that program is, on the way. She's totally turned it around.
What advice do you have to, I'm thinking, you got my brain thinking about all band directors out there, and we're in that transition. Many people are already out of school. Oregon and Washington schools, I feel like we still have another month and a half. I'm kidding. We just have like a week or two, but it feels like it. But, as we're transitioning and a bunch of people are taking on new jobs and we got a bunch of new music educators coming. What would be the biggest sage advice you would have for a new educator taking over a band job right now?
Oh boy, that's a good question. And I'm going to give an answer that you probably don't expect. You can get, especially with band, and I did this myself. You can get so wrapped up in it, it becomes your life, your lifeblood, and you don't do anything but locked in. You take your band, on these trips, you do this parade. Every town has a parade, by the way. You do this parade, you do the competitive marching band, you jazz band, your concert band, you go to Bands of America, you do everything. Well, if you're gotten to that point, then you've already figured all this out. But my advice is you have got to have a life outside of the band room. You have to have a life. Whatever that is, you've got to have a hobby. You've got to, if you're married, spend lots of time with your family. If you're not, then you need to be involved in community groups that are not music. You need to do things that are completely outside of the become a nerd in something else, to where you have a passion besides. Mine is woodworking. I haven't had a car in my garage for 25 years. It's a wood shop. And so I go out there, and that's, it's another passion. It's something else I can do. Well, my wife is my passion too. And my family, my family's always been extremely important to me. My church is really important to me, but you got to have a life outside of band because it can totally consume you. And if you're not being, and there's no way totally around that. You're going to have periods of your life where it has to consume you. If you're going to excel, you've got to put that kind of time in on it, but you got to figure it out to where you have breathing room.
I agree 100%. Oh my gosh. That's, it's funny. It's funny. I got the Disney trip. I literally land from Disney, by the way. And the next day I get on a plane for Indianapolis and I'm heading to the Sweetwater Director Academy. I'm all excited,
Yeah,
but
you
when
know,
I get,
yeah.
when I get to the end of my summer starts July 1st. That's what I've decided. So July 1st, here's my thing. I just disappear for the summer. Good luck getting a hold of me. Cause I literally, that's my thing that I had to learn. I need to unbe a music teacher and I'm just disappearing for my 2 months. Good luck finding me. I don't care who you are. That's how I rejuvenate and come back the next year wanting more. All right, here comes my scary thing. It has already been 55 minutes, Pat. Can you believe that we've
No.
been, and this is my whole thing. We really didn't get to talk about like 90% of the things I want to talk about. Because I still think you have the secrets out there of like the culture of the band program to me is something that you just excel at, whether it's college, whether it's high school. But, and you kind of said this, but I'm just thinking, what's your final thought on culture? What does culture mean to you? This is the Culture Before Content podcast, and I think culture is really what drives all of us. I look at you as a successful band director, and I think to myself, how can I steal a little bit of
Okay.
Pat's culture?
You got to love kids. Sounds stupid, but you have to love kids. I mean, I had one of my top students, it was either Portland State or George Fox, say, I'm going to drop out of the music ed program. Why? I found out I just don't like kids. Okay. And she goes, aren't you going to get mad? Aren't you going to try to talk me? No, I'm not going to try to talk you out of it, because if you don't love kids, you shouldn't be in this job. And then you've got to find ways to take that love and put it into action and give them what they want. And what they want is a successful experience. And those gifted kids, if they don't have a successful experience, and that isn't especially winning trophies, that's where it's different. Successful experience is making music as an ensemble with a group of people. If you give them that successful experience, they'll follow you anywhere, and you'll have that thing that you want. That's the culture. You got to love kids. You got to give the gift all the kids a successful experience, and you've got to define what that successful experience is, and you've got to do what your homework to be able to give them what they need. And what is that homework? I'm not sure. It's like all the things we've been talking about. Learn how to do the gig, and figure out where your deficits are, and work hard to correct those. But while you're figuring that out, you also have to have things in your life that is going to keep you sane and as a whole person. Does that make sense?
It does. I believe that we have to not, we aren't just music teachers. We are human beings, and you've got to be the entire human.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things I could say, but I'm not.
It just means you need to come back.
I had a terrific career, and it's going on. I'm doing a lot of clinicking and a lot of judging and working with groups. It continues on, but it was such a blessed career. I loved it. The best part about it was when my girls were in my bands. To have your own kids go through the program. And I would say to anybody out there, if you can make that work, you have to make that work, because it was just terrific. Anyway, there you go.
All right, Pat. Well, let's give out your email for those of you out there listening and watching. I always say this: contact our guests. They're a wealth of information, and I think everyone loves to share. And I don't think, Pat, you are any different. Like I said, anytime I've texted you, talked to you, you've been amazing, and I'm still going to get you out. We still never figured out our schedules this year, and I'm going to make that happen.
Okay,
and
I'm available.
Yeah. I know, but this time I'm going to get the schedule out, and so we have it well set in advance, because we're doing it. All right. So if you want to contact Pat Vandehey, and it's Vandehey, I have to have to learn. It's he's got an easy email, pvan2@pdx.edu. That almost rhymes. pvan2@pdx.edu. Message him. I guarantee you he'll respond, and you will learn something talking to Pat. The reason I like to surround myself with people is because I just love to go and listen and pick up something. Y'all don't realize that sometimes you say something that just might be off the cuff, but it'll be something that I will remember, or something that I've learned, or it's why we like to all hang out.
Let me say a closing comment. I know we've gone over.
Well, it doesn't matter.
I did not talk about Portland State at all. 19 years at George Fox. I was 64 years old thinking retirement's soon. And I got approached by Portland State. Remember, I do not have a doctorate. I've been able to walk into some of these positions because of body of work and et cetera.
Yeah.
And of course, because it's in Oregon, so they know me. I mean, California's not calling. Anyway, Portland State, Joel Bluestone took me out to dinner and said, and asked me if I would apply for the job. And I said, Joel, you know how old I am? I'm 64. You don't want me. And he goes, we want you. We don't want you to come, and we're not looking for the next great band director. We're looking for someone to come in and heal this program. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's a whole different. Now I'm talking about, you get to a certain point, you go, I need to change. I need to change. It's time to move to a different. When that arena opened up and they said, come in and heal the program, that I can do that. I can do that for 5 years and just make an impact. Let me make an impact. No, there's lots. Ed Protzman is the best hire they could have made. He's gonna take that band to the next
Ed's
level.
amazing. And he is a former guest on this show. Because
yes, I saw that.
And so anyway, Pat, you are a true gift to this world, and I hope more people get to know who you are today. So thank you so much for being on the show.
It's been my pleasure.
All righty. Episode 60. We made it through. Oh gosh, I was so we're not really in seasons. It's just the end of spring, the beginning of summer. All right. We are so grateful you joined us. We'd love for you to share this exciting podcast on your social media. By doing this, you'll help us spread our message and connect with even more great teachers who could benefit from tuning in. And remember, whether you're listening or watching, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Music for All. Just go to musicforall.org/podcast and you'll find everything you need. And remember, you can always contact me at david.duarte@me.com. I always love hearing from people. Plus, I'm going to get to meet a bunch of you at the Director Academy. I'm so excited. And before we wrap things up, I want to express my true heartfelt thanks to my team on the Culture Before Content podcast. This doesn't happen without your help, from every detail, from helping me get questions, from all the production, redoing things. It's great. I am so thankful and so appreciative of everything that you do. And thanks to Music for All for letting me be the host, and our national I can't even say the words today. National presenting sponsor Yamaha for their ongoing support. And most importantly, thank you to everyone who has participated in these conversations, sharing your experiences, ideas, and passion for building culture through music. And again, a reminder, this is our final episode before we take a little summer break, but don't worry, we'll be back in early August with even more stories, more voices, and lots of inspiration to share. I'm David Duarte. Thank you for being a part of our culture today. I can't wait to see you next time.